Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Vincent had always believed that 27 years of marriage meant something. That the vows spoken at the altar carried weight, that the shared routine built a foundation too solid to crack. He was an engineer, a 52-year-old man used to solving problems with logic and precision, and he thought he knew every detail of the life he'd shared with Claire. He thought so, until that ordinary Thursday in October, when the ground vanished beneath his feet. The morning had started like any other. Claire had coffee with him, made small talk about the weather, and said she needed to visit her mother again, the same story she'd been repeating for weeks. Vincent's mother-in-law lived 2 hours away, an 83-year-old woman who, according to Claire, was in poor health and needed company. Vincent had always offered to go with her, but Claire gently declined, saying those moments were important for just the two of them, mother and daughter, no one else. He respected that. He always had. That morning, Claire left around 10, carrying a small bag and wearing a calm smile. Vincent waved from the window, went back to his home office, and dove into the spreadsheets for a new project. It wasn't until around 11 that he realized he'd forgotten to write down the address of a building supply store a colleague had recommended. The colleague had said it was near a place Vincent had been before, but he couldn't remember where. So he grabbed his phone, opened the shared GPS app for their car, the one they used to locate each other in emergencies, and started scanning recent history for any familiar locations. That's when he saw it. His heart pounded faster at first, then slower, as if his whole body were struggling to process what his eyes had just taken in. For the past 2 months, every Thursday, Claire's car hadn't gone to her mother's house at all. The recorded address was a luxury condominium downtown, just 40 minutes away. Always the same place. Always at the same time. Vincent's mouth went dry. He zoomed in on the map, double-checked the address, then checked it again. There was no mistake. That wasn't his mother-in-law's house. It wasn't even close. He stood there for a moment, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe his mother-in-law had moved and Claire hadn't told him. Maybe it was a doctor's office, a clinic, somewhere related to her care. But then why lie? Why say she was going to her mother's house? Vincent grabbed his phone again, refreshed the GPS in real time, and saw the little blue dot of Claire's car right there, at that same condominium. She was there now. At that very moment. Anger surged through him, burning inside like acid. Vincent didn't hesitate. He grabbed the keys to their second car, the sedan he used for work, and left the house. He didn't call Claire or send a message. He just drove, hands clenched on the wheel, jaw locked tight. Traffic was light, and he reached the condominium in under half an hour. It was a sleek building with electronic security and flawless landscaping, the kind of place where each apartment cost more than most suburban homes. Vincent parked across the street and watched. Claire's car was there, in the visitor's spot, gleaming under the midday sun. He waited 15 minutes, though they felt like hours. His mind spun in circles, trying to piece together explanations, but they all led to the same dark place. Finally, Vincent got out of the car, crossed the street, and stepped into the lobby. The doorman, a young man in a crisp uniform, looked at him with polite professionalism. Vincent improvised quickly, saying he was a friend of a resident and had forgotten the apartment number. He described Claire and said she'd just gone up. The doorman hesitated, but Vincent pressed on with a forced smile, mentioning it was a birthday surprise. The young man relented, checked the log, and told him the visitor had gone up to apartment 507 on the 5th floor. Vincent thanked him, stepped into the elevator, and pressed the button. The doors closed slowly, and he caught his own reflection in the polished metal. He looked older, more tired. The doors opened onto the 5th floor, a quiet hallway with beige carpet and discreet lighting. He walked to apartment 507, took a deep breath, and rang the bell. Footsteps from the other side. The door opened. A man in his mid-40s stood there, tall, wearing a suit without a tie, gray streaks at his temples. He had a relaxed, almost bored expression that vanished the moment he saw Vincent. They stared at each other for an endless second. Then, from inside the apartment, came Claire's light, carefree voice. "Who is it, Greg?" "Greg." Vincent repeated the name in his head, etching every syllable into memory. The man in front of him tried to shut the door, but Vincent had already wedged his foot in. "Don't bother," Vincent said, his voice low but firm. "She knows who I am." Gregory, because Vincent now knew the man's full name, stepped back, uncertain. And then Claire appeared behind him, still wearing the same clothes she'd had on when she left the house that morning. When her eyes met Vincent's, all the color drained from her face. She went pale as paper, her mouth open but no sound coming out. Vincent walked into the apartment without asking. It was spacious and modern, with large windows overlooking the city. There was a light-colored leather sofa, a half-empty bottle of wine on the coffee table, 2 glasses. Everything was perfect. Everything was intimate. Vincent looked around, then locked eyes with Claire. 2 months, he said, with a calmness he didn't even know he had. At least 2 months. Every Thursday. I checked the GPS. Claire took a step forward, her hands trembling. "Vincent, I can explain, it's not what you think, Shut up," Vincent cut in, his voice sharp enough to make her flinch. He turned to Gregory, who was leaning against the wall, clearly unsure what to do. "And you, who are you?" Gregory cleared his throat, trying to regain some composure. "Look, I didn't know you two were still together," Claire said. "She lied," Vincent interrupted, letting out a short, humorless laugh. "She's good at that. I bet she told you I was a monster, that our marriage had been over for years, something like that." Gregory didn't reply, but his expression confirmed everything. Vincent shook his head, feeling something tear open inside his chest. He turned back to Claire. "How long, Claire?" "The truth this time." She swallowed hard, her eyes filling with tears. 3 months. "Vincent, please, let me explain." 3 months, he repeated, as if testing the weight of those words. "And your mother? Does she know you've been using her name to cover this up?" Claire started to cry, but Vincent felt no pity. Only anger, deep and cutting. "You know what's funny?" he said, looking straight at Gregory. "She's all yours now, pal. Congratulations. Just one tip, next time she says she's visiting someone, check the GPS. It'll save you time." Gregory flushed red but said nothing. Vincent took one last look around the apartment, at the absurd little scene unfolding there, and walked out. Claire tried to follow him, calling his name in the hallway, but he stepped into the elevator and hit the button before she could get close. The doors closed, cutting off the sight of her shattered face, and Vincent rode down alone, in silence. He didn't go straight home. He drove aimlessly for half an hour, trying to sort through his thoughts. By the time he finally pulled into the garage, he already knew what he had to do. He went inside, locked himself in his office, and spent the next 3 hours gathering everything. He took screenshots of the GPS history. Every Thursday Claire had lied. He logged into their joint bank account and found the unexplained expenses, fancy restaurants, designer clothing stores, a luxury hotel twice. She'd been careful, but not careful enough. Vincent saved everything in a digital folder and backed it up in 3 separate locations. When Claire got home that evening, it was past 7. She came through the front door slowly, as if testing the ground. Vincent was sitting in the living room, his laptop open on the coffee table. She stopped at the doorway, eyes red from crying. "Vincent, we need to talk." "No," he said without looking at her. "We don't need anything. I made a mistake, I know, but that doesn't mean." 3 months isn't a mistake, Claire. It's a choice. He closed the laptop and finally looked at her. You chose this. Every Thursday, you chose to lie, get in the car, go there, and betray me. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was deliberate. Claire stepped closer and sat on the edge of the sofa. I wasn't happy, Vincent. I haven't been happy for years. We drifted apart, you're always at work, I felt invisible. Then you should have talked to me, he cut in, raising his voice for the first time. You should have told me you were unhappy. We could have tried counseling, had a real conversation, anything. But you chose this. She lowered her head, wordless. Vincent picked up the laptop again and turned the screen toward her. I'm sending all of this to my lawyer first thing tomorrow. GPS history, bank statements, everything. You'll sign the divorce papers, and you won't contest a thing. Claire looked up, startled. Vincent, it doesn't have to be like this. We could try. No, he said with absolute firmness. There's no we anymore. You destroyed that. And now you're going to walk out of my life. She tried to argue, to plead, but Vincent got up and went to the guest bedroom, locking the door behind him. He barely slept that night. The next morning, he went straight to the office of a lawyer a colleague had recommended years earlier. The man, Richard, a seasoned professional in his 60s, listened without interrupting. When Vincent finished, Richard nodded slowly. You've got solid evidence. That'll make things much easier. The divorce moved quickly. Vincent filed for separation of assets based on proven adultery, and the evidence he had was undeniable. Claire tried to negotiate, asking to keep half of everything, but her own lawyer knew there was no case to make. The proof was overwhelming. In their state, proven adultery directly impacted the division of property, and Claire had been caught beyond any doubt. The process took 3 tense, exhausting months, but in the end, Vincent kept the house, most of their savings, and both cars. Claire was left with a minimal share, enough to start over, but far from the comfort she'd known before. What Vincent hadn't expected was the social fallout. News of the affair spread fast among their mutual friends. He didn't have to say a word. Claire tried to tell her side of the story, but people saw the evidence, heard the details, and most sided with Vincent. At the tennis club she used to frequent, at neighborhood association meetings, at community events, Claire became someone to avoid. Women who'd once been close friends barely replied to her messages anymore. She'd lost not just her marriage, but her reputation. Gregory, the man from the luxury apartment, also vanished from her life. As soon as he realized the affair had turned into a public, messy divorce, he backed away. He stopped answering Claire's calls and even changed his phone number. She was left alone, living in a small apartment on the other side of town, far from everything familiar. The final twist came 6 months after the divorce. Vincent was at home, sorting through some things in the basement, when the doorbell rang. He opened the door to find Claire's mother standing on the porch with a shopping bag in hand. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice gentle but firm. Vincent invited her into the living room and offered coffee. She accepted and sat in silence for a moment before speaking. "I know everything now," she said finally. "Claire told me. It took her a while, but she finally told me." Vincent didn't know what to say. Claire's mother continued. "I raised her better than this. I taught her values, respect. What she did to you, it's unforgivable." She paused, her eyes glistening. "I told her I don't want any more contact. She used me as an excuse for her lies, dragged me into this mess without my knowing. I can't accept that." Vincent was stunned. "You don't have to do this. She's your daughter. And you were my son-in-law for 27 years, she replied. "You've been more honest with me than she's ever been. I'll come by every month, if you'll have me. I want to stay part of your life." And she did. Over the following months, Claire's mother began visiting him regularly, bringing home-cooked meals, talking about life. She became a steady presence, a strange bridge between past and future. When Claire found out, she was devastated. She'd lost her husband, her home, her friends, and now even her own mother. For his part, Vincent sold the big house in the suburbs and bought a smaller, more modern, practical apartment. He went back to the gym, picked up hobbies he'd abandoned, and started traveling again. It took nearly a year, but he began to feel the wound start to heal. It wasn't about Claire anymore. It was about him, about rebuilding a life that had been shattered by lies. A year and a half after the divorce, Vincent met a woman named Patricia at a networking event. She was an architect, also divorced, with a similar story of betrayal and starting over. They began dating slowly, without rushing. Patricia was nothing like Claire, direct, honest, no games. She valued transparency, and Vincent valued that in her. Claire, on the other hand, remained alone. The small apartment, the part-time job, the solitude. She tried reconnecting with old friends, but her tarnished reputation followed her. She called her mother repeatedly, but her calls went unanswered. Gregory never reached out again. And Vincent, the man she'd betrayed and humiliated, was living the best chapter of his life. One spring afternoon, Vincent was having coffee downtown with Patricia when he spotted Claire across the street. She was alone, carrying shopping bags, her face tired and aged. Their eyes met for just a second. Claire seemed like she wanted to say something, but Vincent simply looked away, turning back to Patricia, who was laughing at something he'd just said. He felt no anger, no sadness, only indifference. And somehow, that was the greatest victory of all. Because Vincent had learned that the most effective revenge isn't destroying the other person, it's rebuilding your own life so fully, so completely, that the past becomes irrelevant. Claire had lost everything: her marriage, her home, her friends, her mother, her reputation. Vincent had lost a lying wife, but gained something far more valuable: the freedom to start over without the weight of betrayal. And unlike the GPS that exposed Claire's lies, his life now followed a clear path, no detours, no false turns. He was exactly where he was meant to be. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.